I just think that this is an amazing program, and I think that all districts, I can't wait to see the future of districts utilizing it. I think that it will help students, adults, and communities in such a way that will allow people to be healthier adults and contributors to society. So thanks for all the work that you guys are doing in this direction.
Well, thank you. Like I said, it is our goal, right, to get every student to a place where they're ready to learn, to make sure that every family feels welcoming and fully engaged and like an active and valued member of every school community. Like most things in New Hampshire, it's a boots on the ground, grassroots process that we want to make sure is reflecting the needs of each community.
So I think my understanding is that maybe there's a confusion between social emotional learning and mental health. And I think that's getting kind of muddled because that's maybe
well,
what I see
in
that
their
you're
own
saying.
documentation. It refers to mental health in their own documentation. So I'm going off of what they have in their contract.
There's a distinction there, right? And so social emotional learning we might think of as kind of that universal tier 1 skill-based kind of work that folks have been referring to. Then there are at times a child with some identified needs may need assistance that is really more mental health treatment. At that point, for instance, a school would help facilitate a referral if the family wished to their local community mental health center. They would then report the number of students that they have referred to us as an indication of to what degree are they helping students access appropriate, in that case, treatment, but by a qualified provider. Again, now we're talking about a pretty small subset of kids. And then only the kids that really have more intensive needs around mental health would then gain access to mental health.
You're getting PII, you're just getting it, and you're not getting any at all.
We are not.
Okay.
It's getting an aggregate number.
Okay. Going back to the schools, and that's where I think a lot of the confusion for me comes in, especially, like you said, between these factors. So at some point, the child's got to be identified as being able to be taken to the next tier. It's very confusing as to what constitutes going to the next tier. How are they identifying the student that goes from tier 1 to tier 2?
Schools use a variety of methods. So every school district that I've interfaced with has a different method for this. But one that is reasonably overlapping and utilized is any school district that's implementing a tiered system like this usually has a team developed at every tier. But say a tier 2 team is a group of individuals that will include, teachers, will include guidance counselors or whatever they're referred to in the school, if there's a school social worker, sometimes special ed providers, a variety of folks. And it's a team that functions to sort of consult and figure out how do we best address the needs of students who don't appear to be functioning in the classroom the way tier 1 services are designed to support. Often it's based on things like a student receives a certain number of office discipline referrals in a certain period of time. Schools track the number of times students are sent to the office for behavior reasons. And if there's a student who's gotten, I'm making this number up, but just say 12 in a month versus 1, then teachers in that tier 2 team are going to say, hey, student X appears to be having some discipline-related issues and behavior issues. What have folks noticed? And as a team, let's talk about different, and so discipline is not the only one. Often they'll use attendance, nurse visits, academic performance. Whether or not students are receiving other services, like they know that this student is homeless and is not eating and so is getting food provided by the school and things like that. So they use a variety of criteria, and that team consults and says, is this student sort of rising up to what we have determined to be tier 2 level of support? And if so, do we have services in the school that could support that student, that we can get parent consent for that student to engage in? A skills-based program with parent consent.
From my understanding, to get from tier 1 to tier 2, for a child to move, if you will, or specifically, is it the case that in regards to these questionnaires or surveys or whatever, that a child is never moved from tier 1 to tier 2 on the basis of these surveys? Is that
I don't know what surveys you're referring to.
So a questionnaire is given to a child, right?
There are none
Okay.
that I am aware
There's
of that are
no
given to
questionnaires
each
that
child.
are
So
administered.
are the teachers evaluating the child?
For evaluation,
Evaluation.
I'm not familiar with the.
Because I've had calls from teachers where they've said that they are inputting this data into computers and that they are doing the evaluations on children in their schools.
The school districts that I interface with, I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's.
Do the school districts have on their report card for students, do they have a grade for social emotional learning in any districts?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm really glad we're all talking. And my biggest worry in this world right now is how divided we are and how alone people feel. And this work is really about us doing this together. And I just want to make an offering that I would love to sit down with anybody. It's a big conversation. I'd be happy to look at social emotional learning as a body and what's curriculum and what isn't. And I don't frankly love the word mental illness or mental health, if I'm honest with you. This is about resiliency. And frankly, it's about my little girl growing up in this world, having resilient skills that we know prepare all children to handle strong emotions and to feel connected with the people in their community. I just want to make sure that what we walk away with today from my end of this is about how can we do this together and how do we meet what I see in our communities as increasing levels of need and distress and hurt. And I'm really hopeful that we're all talking today and that if we put our work together, I think we'll get there. I really do.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that, and I think that is, there's no question that having a public forum, and I think congratulate you folks for doing, I think is really healthy and important. But I think one of the things we need to keep in our forefront in our minds is that schools are academic institutions. That's really what they are. They're not social service agencies. And a lot of the things, I think that I see the criteria here, and there's 7 or 8, one of these PowerPoint slides had 7 or 8, sort of bubbles. Intellectual is only one of them. And the reality is that schools are academic and intellectual institutions. That's their primary mission. So every hour, every teacher prep program, every professional development point that is moving away from that, from teaching kids how to read and how to do math, that's their function.
And I would say,
so that,
there's another piece to this that I think is really profound as a parent. And again, I keep speaking as a parent because I think that's what brings many of us to this room today. And we've learned a lot in the last 20 years, and that our ability to, and I know I'm not going to talk long because it's my favorite topic, but to learn, for kids to learn academic material, they have to have their thinking brain engaged. And to do that, they have to feel safe and connected. And when we get down to the bottom of it, we just want people to feel safe and connected and to have some awareness of how they're feeling and other people. That is really the foundation of all of this. And anybody who is living in a chronic state of fear, and again, I know we could talk for hours and I won't do that today, I'm going to tell you they can't do that.
I think you just have to realize that that's, what teachers have always done this kind of work.
Yeah.
That's not primarily what they're trained to do. Nor are they trained to evaluate what seems like often sort of amorphous.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to do that. Yeah,
But-
you're right,
but-
we wouldn't want to do that.
The point of it, it's also not new. I mean, I can show you a book that was written in 1955 that talked about the whole child.
Yeah.
And, we've had outcome-based education, we've had 21st century skills. I have to say, as someone who's been working in education for 25 or 30 years now, this feels like more of the things that we've seen for 30 years than it does something that's that new.
One of the things the commissioner continues to drive home to us is what are we doing to ensure that students are ready to learn, right? And ready to learn is an everyday thing. What are educators, the state, the local community, whoever, my significant other's the school resource officer, every day he goes in, what can I do to ensure that students are ready to learn, right? I've instilled that a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
I guess the
so
question
it
is,
is.
to learn what? Is it math?
To learn
Or is it-
academics,
yes.
absolutely,
Academics.
to learn academics. That's my point, is that what you said before, I 1000% agree with you. We 1000% agree with you as the Department of Education. And what can we do to help families get there? Because our main role is to make sure that we ensure that students have the ability to learn the academics that we are trained and to be able to deliver for students. So part of this work is a holistic community effort. You heard everybody talk about that community piece, that it's not just about what's happening in the school, it's what's happening around the community to help us get there. Schools may be the driver because they've got the students there every day, but they're not the only ones that are engaging in this work. But it's all about that work.
Well, but it's also about the money, right? I mean, that's...
No, actually. I mean, that gives us the ability to do these things.
But that's what's driving part of it.
No, I would actually disagree with you, but we should talk more
I
about that.
think
One more
that
thing.
the program is free, right? And
That's
I
on the
think
website.
that this community management team is the essential part of what you're trying to drive
We do too.
up. Because I think, well, we have a school district that doesn't seem to want to always encourage community involvement. So I think if you can get your school district to branch out into the community and start going to the community to help address the issues that are happening and there are behavior issues in our school. We've been hearing about them on the school board level. So this is what he's driving at, trying to not curtail the curriculum or anything, but to get more participation with your school district, with your school board, with your community as a team.
Right.
I think that's a very important component.
Heather, I just want to pinpoint the 3 areas I think that are basically concerns for parents that I speak to. Number 1 is, are they following the law? And when they are doing any kind of this mental health in the school, ESSA says informed parental consent.
Absolutely.
So that's where I feel like we might have a problem.
And
From
we always
Facebook-
look for those
Right.
times
So
when you find
I
those
think
things
it
out,
would
let us know,
help-
I'll reach out.
Yeah, I think it would help the DOE to make it clear that if ESSA, that when they are engaged in this, that they need informed consent. Not just a consent form, it's an informed consent. So they need to let parents know every step of the way.
And we believe that our
That
schools
is
are doing
right.
that, so let us know when it does.
Exactly. So one thing we didn't bring up is credentialing, and I do consult with PhD level child psychologists, as you know, and because I'm not one. And I want to make sure that what I'm looking at when they're sending information back to me from school district, Merrimack being one, that it's accurate. And I found conflicts. When I talked to a individual who has clinical experience, who has education, and who has treated children for mental illness or mental health in any way, and then I hear from a school district that says this isn't mental health, there's a conflict when I have a PhD level. So that's the other thing, is the credentialing of these individuals. I hear from teachers who contact me who are not comfortable. They don't like this. They are being put in this position. Maybe some teachers have no problem with it, but I'm telling you, I've heard from teachers confidentially that that's how I came upon this. I didn't even know this stuff was going on. It was actually teachers that brought it to me. So I'm concerned about the credentialing of these individuals, and so are the professionals in that industry. So much so that they pull their kids out of public schools because they see this as almost treating a mental health situation without really informed consent, or doing it class-wide. We talk about workforce skills, and how that gets muddied with some of the social and emotional stuff, and a curriculum. I mean, you're talking about a social and emotional curriculum. How do parents opt out? There's so much to this that parents are concerned about.
I know you've got one more point, but
Yeah.
if I may, what I'm hoping that everyone heard here today is where everyone's articulated and confirmed that mental health diagnoses, assessment, whatever other term you want to put, is not happening in the classroom. None of that is happening in the classroom. It's just not. And if there are cases like that you're finding out where teachers are being asked to do mental health counseling in the classroom, of course we want to know about that so that we can provide proper professional development.
The schools that are doing
Yep,
this.
that's a parent survey.
Right.
That's not a student survey or a
The
teacher.
teacher that contacted me that's doing it is subjectively evaluating children in the classroom. She's the one who contacted me and said she's not comfortable with that.
Right, so I think, so that one person, then we can reach out and we can help support
She will
that
not
and that.
give you your name and all
That's
that.
okay, I mean, that's certainly
I'm sure
not
you
right to do
understand.
that,
I'm
of
sure you
course.
understand.
But we can't help the situation unless we know about that, of course.